volunteered, and I was in the Navy, and I went to service. I signed up in May before my June birthday, June the 29th, and it was like the end of May. I don't remember the exact date. But anyway, the war, of course, was going on, the thickness of it, and I volunteered and went to volunteered and went to Sherman to volunteer, and they sent me to Dallas. Me and 9 other guys, and I carried their papers down for them, and I was accepted by sworn in, and most of those guys that I went with took down there, they were turned down for various health reasons. So I went from there to Hitchcock, Texas, down near Houston, between Houston and Galveston, and went to boot camp there. There was 109 companies of sailors went through boot camp there. As we had been sworn in, and as we were going through the health clinic down there in Houston, they were shooting us with various shots that they had to give people, and it was hot, hot, hot. A lot of those guys passed out, fainted and passed out too, going through that experience. So you had to carry your clothes that they had issued you, and most of the clothes were all right for me because I was small, and I only weighed 120 pounds. I had to weigh 120 to be able to go into the service, and so the size of clothes was all right. A lot of those guys got clothes that they couldn't wear or they were too big, but mine were just fine. I went over there to my barracks, and a guy by the his last name was Reed, come over to my barracks to see me, and he was about 3 or 4 weeks into the program. Mm. He told me it was really hell there. He really didn't like it, but I didn't. It doesn't bother me. I could do what they wanted me to do, and I just didn't have a problem. One funny thing happened over there. We were in a hand-to-hand combat training, and this guy was showing us how to overcome someone, and he called me up there to the mat and told me to run after, try to catch, to get a hold of him. And I ran toward him, and he threw me in the air about a country mile. And everybody laughed about it, but it was not, it wasn't very funny then to me.
Right.
But anyway, I finished that and went to school in Gulfport, Mississippi, University of Mississippi. Had an extension college set up there for service people. And I went through that school and then went to Shoemaker, California, and from Shoemaker, California to Seattle, Washington, and went to school there for a little while. Then went to Astoria, Oregon, and I lit the first boiler, or the boiler under the ship that I was on, APA 179, and was a transport troop built by the Kaiser people, and they were famous for making whatever, and they had a facility at Astoria there, and they made this ship. I lit the first fire under the boiler on that ship, and I turned the boiler off when it was decommissioned in Norfolk, Virginia. after the, as I say, it was a troop transport ship. We took the 10th Army Command into Okinawa, and General Buckner, who was the commander of that, the 10th Army, we had his car that he drove over on the island, or they drove over on the island, and he was shot by a sniper. Got out of that car and stood out there trying to see what was going on, and somebody, or a Jap, shot him. I wish he'd come on, I'd show you something that you would want to know. I've got a Japanese rifle and bayonet for out of World War II. So anyway, I'll get it for you in a little bit and let you see that. What do you need? What else do you need me to tell you about combat? Combat. As we were going into Okinawa with the 10th Army Command on the ship, we met a hospital ship. Now, the hospital ship was painted white with red crosses on the side and on the covers on the holes in the ship. Mm. And 3 Japanese Zeros were shelling it. And we were sailing along. We wasn't within distance of helping or trying to help them. And there wasn't anything to keep those Zeros from attacking that ship. We went on toward Okinawa, or not, yeah, and went in there, and we, as I say, had the command on there, so they put us in this anchorage where we had ships all around us of different kinds of ships, destroyers and LSTs and battleship. We had a battleship next to us. So they was trying to protect the command. Mm-hmm. We finally sent them ashore on Okinawa, and there was a river up at the north part of the island where they went into, and they were fighting the Japs there real heavy, and Marines had gone in ahead of us, and they went north out of that position and secured the north end of Okinawa, and we had unloaded our troops men, and then they put us in a charge of taking care of people that were not seriously wounded and survivors of ships that was being sunk. And APA 21 was taking care of men that were seriously wounded and were dying. I saw men stacked like cordwood on the fantail of 21 of that 21, APA 21. They had a rough duty. We had too, but it was worse for them. Anyway, we stayed there for 20 some odd days taking care of the survivors. One experience we had there, always did, I had a man come on the ship. He had his ship, he was on a destroyer, and it was sunk by the Japs, and his name was Fenolio up in Montague County at Montague, and I knew him, and he knew me, because my cousin married his brother, and he was going home from there, and we were there still in battle. I had, on the ship, I was on a twin 40 millimeter anti-aircraft gun. You know what that means? The gun had two guns, and they'd be like that.
Oh, okay.
I was in a 40 millimeter. Right below and on the fantail of the ship was a 5-inch gun. 5 inches one has a barrel about that big around. So they didn't have radar or anything of that nature. They just shot by sight and wasn't very accurate. Didn't do anything much. Now some destroyers had radar, and I saw one day a Jap plane was coming over the island after us. It was a suicide plane, and this destroyer with his radar shot him out of the air, just bang, and there it was. Interesting thing that happened as we were there, anchored to disembark the men we had on the ship, and it was of a night, and we made we made smoke. That was fog, artificial fog, that would cover the ships in anchorage. And an LST, we were at general quarters, and an LST had pulled in right behind us, the fantail, and a Jap plane came over the island, and that was about the only way they could get in was come over the island. Because if it came over the water, there were all kinds of resistance to them coming that way. But anyway, that LSD had rocket launches on the deck of it. And they shot all these rockets off, and that LSD went like that in the water and scared us to death because we hadn't seen anything like that before. Then that was an interesting thing. I can still see that in my mind's eye. But something else that you might think. That was near the end. We did, we stayed there about 20-something days. And during that time, I was in over 2,000 air raids. No, general quarters. And I don't remember how many air raids. That's in that book, I think. And to give you all those things you're wanting to know. We left Okinawa and came back to Hawaii to pick up, get ready to pick up troops that we were going to invade the mainland of Japan with. And we were at sea when the bombs were dropped by President Truman, and the war was over. And we turned around and went to San Diego, and I was sick, and then the ship's hospital, and I didn't get to go ashore to see or do anything in San Diego. We left there coming around through the Suez Canal to Norfolk, Virginia to decommission the ship. And I turned the last fire out from under the border in Norfolk where they decommissioned. And they salvaged the ship. after the war was over? Oh, I was a big hand at reading newspapers, and I was following the development and the activities that was taking place, and because of that, I guess I built up a real strong mind or attitude of what we were doing in World War II, and I decided that I wanted to do my part in protecting our country, so I volunteered. My parents had to sign papers to allow me to go because I wasn't nowhere close to the age that they allowed me to go into. When I had them sign the papers, I was only 16, and I had finished high school. During my schooling, I'd made 2 grades in a year twice, and so I finished school when I was 16, and then went to the service, or signed up to go to the service at the age of 16. But I was just barely, I was almost 17. I went in service in May, and my birthday's in June. 2 years, like just a few days over that, but not just 2 years. Yeah, everybody had time. Might not be the kind. I actually had the rating or the position to be a chief petty officer, and they called them, or my job title was Oil King. I took care of the buoyancy of the ship, the oil that was on the ship, the feed oil for the boilers, and drinking water. I had a laboratory that I tested all this stuff in. Well, that was at the end of my tenure in the Navy. Prior to that, I was a water tender in the I was a fireman and tended boilers is what I'm trying to say. Where was I on D-Day? I was in the Pacific, going from, I believe I was going from Saipan to Tinian, I think. I'm not sure. Anyway, I was going from, we were headed from one island to another one when that happened. D-Day was the day that they invaded Europe, right? Okay. That's what I was trying to get straight in my mind. And that's what we were doing when we were over in the far Pacific, going from Saipan to, I don't remember what island. We was going to another island to pick up troops, but I don't remember what it was. We were at Tinian because that's where the 2 bombs were loaded on airplanes. There's Tinian, and I went ashore at Tinian. There was a huge rock there on where we anchored off from them. But I went ashore there, and a huge rock that they had evidently sometime in the past had brought from China to over there to that island, and they claimed that they'd used it to sacrifice people. So I don't know whether that's right or not. Anyway, that was where it was a real long, big airstrip there on that island. There was a little smaller island just off of Tinian that we never did capture or invade, and the Japs had it, and we just left the Japs there on the island, and not we, but the Americans left them on that island, didn't bother them, but they didn't know that the war was over there, evidently, and they just kept on staying there. Yeah, Japs were dedicated and peculiar people, but they were strong and real devoted to their cause. I recall bits and pieces here and there. Saipan, Tinian, Midway, Guam. Let's see, that was Saipan, brother. The Japs, we went ashore where we had destroyed a Coca-Cola plant. Coca-Cola bottle glass was all over the ground there. The Japs, the Marines had pushed them down to one end of the island where there was a big cliff, and that's where they had a big to do where those Japs committed suicide, jumped off the side of that cliff rather than surrendering or staying and fighting. They just jumped off the cliff and killed themselves on the other end of the island. There was some snipers, Jap snipers, that they had to clear out on the island. But while we was there, we had what they called anyway, I went walking on that island by myself, and it was much like where I grew up. So I was enjoying myself, and I come back. Man, they was upset at me because I wasn't there to go back on the ship with them. I delayed the men there for a while. But things like that happen in various places. It was of interest to me and probably no interest to anybody else. Or we went to Iwo Jima and unloaded Marines there, and they were fighting. I was at that mountain there that they raised a flag, and you see everywhere a picture of the flag raising. I was at the foot of that mountain. I went ashore and went there, and they were still fighting down on the other end of the island. And I went aboard a Japanese seagoing tug there. I may have that. Let's see. I think I've got a bottle that I picked up over that ship. And that's the bottle I picked up off that Japanese seagoing tug. And now then, that sand that you see in there, the volcano that erupted up by Portland, Oregon, that's sand that was there. And I was up there when shortly after that took place. We flew into the Portland there to the airport, and everything was covered with that stuff there. And I'd got made arrangements for a rent-a-car, and went into the airport there. There were just 2 or 3 of us got off the airplane, and Glendora was with me, and we'd made arrangements for a car, and everything was covered to that right there. And I walked up to the counter where this woman was, and I told her, I said, I've got a car reserved for me, and she said, any of those out there. There was a whole line of rent cars that were covered up with that stuff there. She said, don't turn the windshield wiper on because it'll cut the glass all to pieces. That'd be interesting for you to feel, instead of just looking at it. Just turn it over to you. Yeah, that'd be fine. Is it? Yeah. It's just like powdered glass. Okay, let me have it. Thank you. I think I was in Hawaii when they dropped the bomb. No, I didn't see him. Hawaii's here. Tinian is a long ways away to the west of Hawaii, and that's where the airplanes took off to carry that bomb that dropped the 2 bombs, atomic bombs, that came off of there. The first bomb was delivered to Tinian by a cruiser, and they dropped that bomb off there. They unloaded the bomb onto Tinian, and then they sailed on going to they were headed to the Philippines, Manila, and they got about halfway over there, and they were not running, zigzagging, or doing anything, and a blaming Japanese submarine spotted them and put 2 torpedoes in the side of that ship, and it sunk in about 11 minutes and killed. Men were out there for days in the shark-infested waters before we finally got around, the Americans got around to picking them up or finding them. Lost the ship, lost the cruiser that took them over there. That was a bad thing. That was a foolish thing. It didn't have to happen. It just did. When we were going into taking the troops into Okinawa, there was a sea out there, and we spotted a submarine, Japanese submarine. Mm-hmm. He was running along the side of the convoy we was in, and I was the one, me and another guy was the ones that spotted the submarine's periscope. And I hollered up to the bridge, and they told the destroyer escorts what was happening. And boy, they up there and dropped depth charges trying to sink this submarine, but he got away. Next day, they had a woman, the Japs did, who we call Tokyo Rose. She told about about us and what we were doing and where we were going and everything else on the radio. Anyway, that was interesting to us. Anyways, they got away, and we went on our way. They didn't do anything. They didn't fire into us or the. Yeah, I'd do it over. 'Cause you don't have any You don't have a memory of you don't have a memory of that before it took place. Yeah, I'd do it over again. Because I don't think that anything I did was in vain or what have you. I'll tell you something happened that would be of interest. When we were going into Okinawa, I assisted the chaplain on our ship. He was from out at Canyon, Texas, a Baptist minister, and I assisted him in his services. We had 4 different services on the Sunday before we went into Okinawa. After the war was over, we picked up a load of Air Force men off of Iwo Jima, and some of them came from the mainland of Japan. I don't know where they'd come from before then. But anyway, I had a load of troops, and we were coming into San Francisco, and they piped the services, Sunday morning services, on the fantail of the ship. It was a pretty day. Guess how many people showed up there? Wasn't 4 different services for the ship. There's one service, 6 people. That's the Japanese rifle. Just light, isn't it? And this is a Japanese bayonet. I did not, my boy got this bayonet. I didn't get the bayonet. Got that, but I didn't get this. The war was over. We took a load of sailors into this anchorage there. As we were going into the anchorage, a Japanese destroyer came out and met us, went along and saluted with their flag. It had a flag system, and they saluted us and went on behind us and followed us on into the anchorage. And we unloaded, or were going to unload the Navy men there. Mm-hmm. And MacArthur was in charge of occupying Japan, General MacArthur, and he refused to let us unload those men there. We went and got the arms, the guns and what have you, out of the armory there at that town, and that rifle and a bunch of other weapons they had in there, and I got the rifle. And as I say, let me see the rifle again and I'll show you what. The Japs, you see in the movies, that's supposed to slide down on that, and yeah. Yeah, I'm not being able to do it. Anyway, that bayonet goes down there. Mm. I mean, that thing does. And this, there it goes. That got it. That's what the Japanese you see in movies and on TV. That's the Japanese rifle. And this is the real thing. What you see on the movies is probably not a rifle at all, or a bayonet either. But anyway, those Japs, hand-to-hand combat, they had a strap from here to back here on the right there, and they had that strap, and it was this hand, and they like that, and they had that, and then they'd use this bayonet to kill people or injure them, and they'd capture our soldiers in this hook here, and they'd kill them. If you ever got caught with your rifle and their rifle, you was at a terrible disadvantage. But that was a hookup for the Japanese rifle and weapon. And I don't know what I'm going to do with that. That's kind of a sad thing too. Somebody, one of my boys is going to have to take it, but I'd want to keep it all together. I was in the hospital a whole bunch of times, and I was physically, I was in real bad shape because of my nerves involved. As I said, I was in the hospital before I was discharged 2 or 3 times. And I say hospital, our ship had a super good battery of doctors and a super good hospital on that ship, because we were troop transport, and that was one of the priorities when they built that ship, because it was not a general, but it was built to take care of troops. People who had problems, they give them discharge, whatever you discharge. I wasn't, I ended up being 50% disabled from the experiences that I had, service-connected. The Veterans Administration has been real good to me, though, down through the time. Very good. Did you ever know of Duke and Ayers? You're not old enough to. They had a pretty good sized store here in Gainesville called Duke and Ayers. Floyd Ferguson was the manager of it. And the man that was over Floyd, the district manager for Duke and Ayers, he lived in Dallas, and his name was Pike. And he was our ship's baker. He made bread and whatever what other pastries that we have. And he made, boy, the bread, in my mind, I can still taste that bread that he made. It was super good. Anyway, he died. He choked to death in Dallas after the war. 2 or 3 years after that. But I bet him, that's the only guy, the Fidolio that I mentioned, he wasn't on our ship as a sailor. He was on a destroyer that got sunk and then was brought to our ship over there in the Pacific. And I knew him. But those are the only 2 people I remember that I knew. We had a destroyer that was sunk over there. And do you know where Terrell, Oklahoma is? Do you know where Nocona is? Go on the next town west there, which is Ringo. Anyway, go across the bridge up there, and it would be in Terrell's area. There was a destroyer that had a whole bunch of men from that area, a whole bunch of sailors from that area that we took care of, that I remember. But I didn't see, I was not acquainted with many people that was from here. Most of them are. A lot of them are from the New England area of the states, from Montague County. I was raised at a little community called Illinois Bend, and where our house was, it was 25 miles to Nocona and 25 miles to St. Joe. I had a girlfriend across the river in Oklahoma. The bridge that we had there at the bend had washed out in one of the big floods. So you had to go, if you went, had this girlfriend, if I went over there to see her, I had to ride a horse or drive 99 miles. It was around to St. Joe, around to Gainesville and across and up, or go to Ringo and down. It was 99 miles both ways. And she was a real pretty girl, but I went on a date with her sister. She wasn't there at home. I don't know what was happening. I don't remember. And I went on this date with her, and she told her evidently that she'd gone out with me, and Patsy would never see me. She wouldn't go out with me on a date after that. She moved to California and got married, had 11 children, and lost her mind. Isn't that sad? That's bad. Honey, when did we move to Cook County?
In 1950, let's see, Larry was born in 1950, and he started kindergarten here. 56 or 55. No, wait a minute. Kindergarten or first? He started first grade here. So in 56. We moved here in 56.
And in between that time and
in 1972, you're talking about when we went to Victoria.
Yeah.
We moved down there, I believe, let me think just a minute. 1972, isn't that the year Daddy died?
Yeah.
We moved down there in 72, and we moved back in 74, or 3.
Okay.
We were down there we moved in January.
A little over 2 years.
We moved in January of 72, so that was 72. In 73,
74.
we moved back here the end of 1973.
Okay.
That was almost 2 years.
Okay.
I know we moved down in January, but I don't remember what month.
Victoria is located between, well, if you don't know where that is, why, it was, you'd say on the map between Houston and Corpus Christi. Anyway, it was on the coast. And there was a bunch of chemical plants there. And I was, developed an allergy from that and lost my voice. And I had to get out of there. The doctors told me to leave because it would be permanent if I didn't. And so I come back here and got a job back here and out at Munster with Cook County Electric Cooperative.
But we loved Victoria.
Yeah, I love Victoria. It was a good place. We made a lot of friends there.
He got married. 47.
My vocation at that time was girls. I had 200 acres of land and cattle, and so forth. And I guess that's what I did, didn't it? Wasn't it, honey? I was on the
That's
farm.
mostly what you do. You went to Fort Worth. That's what it is.
Yeah. And then I went to work.
Conveyor.
Yeah. Went to Fort Worth and went to work conveyor. And again, I had an allergy problem, losing my voice. So I quit and went to work for National Supply and worked there for a couple of years. And then I went in business for myself. I had
We had a grocery store.
yeah.
Bought a grocery store.
It was a rural store in Illinois Bend,
Okay.
up in Montague County. All during that time, I was in real bad health. I'm talking about bad health. Nearly lost my life. Every place, the folks that sent me I went to Oklahoma City to the doctors, and I went to Wichita Falls and to Dallas and everywhere. And finally, there was a hospital at Nocona, and a family-owned hospital named
Majors.
Majors. And I went to Dr. Bob Major, and he said, I don't know what's wrong with you, but we can operate and find out. I went out to the car with my mother, and Glendora was with me. We got in a pickup, and we was gonna drive off, and I stopped it, and I said, I'm not gonna leave. I'm going back in there and let him find out what's wrong with me. So they operated on me, and I had ileitis real bad. That's a problem in your intestine. And I was under the weather for a long time. I guess still am, aren't I?
Yeah. But I was thinking they removed all of your colon. They did it.
Not all of it.
All that they could.
All that they could without doing a colonoscopy. But anyway, that's what
Got better.
got better. Here I am. A long time after they said I was gonna die. Two. Both
Two
boys.
boys, yes. One of them's 70 years old now, and the other one's 65.